Greetings. You are now tuned into the Vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live or listening to replay. Always appreciate you for tuning in and listening to this particular podcast. Once again, this is the Vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Once again, just want to thank you. This is a pop up episode, so just a random episode. If you want to listen to a structured episode, you can call in or listen to the podcast every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Tuesdays, and get an episode particularly about a particular subject matter that the Vault talks about when it comes to trusteeship. But today's pop up episode is going to be episode 149, Federal EIN versus State EIN. And this is going to be an episode really catered towards individuals that are starting businesses or looking to have businesses, and a lot of times they don't know basic fundamentals when it comes to acquiring employer identification number. Sometimes you see it as ID number, but an ID number traditionally would be looked at as an employer identification number, which EIN number stands for. And a lot of times, a lot of new entrepreneurs don't know the difference between a state or a federal. You don't really hear conversations in the public about this. So, just from consultations, a bunch of people contacting the vault, and saying, hey, I started it out LLC and I got a state EIN. Not knowing what was the purpose of having that particular style of EIN versus the federal. So, definitely no legal advice from the vault, but conversation as an entrepreneur. When entrepreneurs are traditionally sometimes even going out and getting the EIN, we even talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. We talked to an entrepreneur the other day or the day before yesterday. Literally, entrepreneurs say, "Yeah, I started out the business, from scratch." I said, because literally, asking the entrepreneur what lawyer helped them create the business, and they said, "Oh, I did it on my own." So, when you hear them say that they've started their own businesses, a lot of the times you would like to hear uh, where they get the EIN number from. Some of them, or quite a bit of them, say, "I got a state EIN. I didn't know that there was a federal EIN." So this discussion today is to really talk about the federal versus the state when it comes to the EIN, because a lot of entrepreneurs in general don't know the difference. And so the state, when you look at it, is something that traditionally deals with employees. The state, when you have to deal with employees in a particular state, you're going to have employment taxes, you're going to have unemployment taxes, you're going to have employee insurances that are necessary, and those are traditionally looked at on the state level. So you all can look into that. Whether you have employees or not, that definitely makes a big difference. But when you traditionally look at the federal is something where a lot of people now have these internet businesses, so they're doing business in multiple jurisdictions. And the federal EIN traditionally gives that level of coverage and leverage because it is something that can operate, particularly with the IRS and different jurisdictions. You think about. Uh, we're not going to talk about socials, but the social, to a degree, has a federal level to it, but it also it can be administered on state levels as well, and that's just social. But to stick to the EIN, when we talk about the federal EIN is still something that's very generic. That if you have the corporation and it's operating in multiple jurisdictions outside of one state, then traditionally you do as an entrepreneur deal with the federal, and that's something that we make it a point to talk to entrepreneurs about, because a lot of entrepreneurs are looking to operate in multiple jurisdictions. They're looking to operate in uh, different jurisdictions, and so very important for us to look into that aspect of it when a lot of entrepreneurs are internet entrepreneurs nowadays, and by them being internet entrepreneurs, federal would be dealing with more of a level of once again internet status, multiple states, even international, when people are doing business international and still utilizing domestic companies to do those transactions and things of that nature. But then you see minimum contacts, and minimum contacts sometimes put you in a position where you're on a state level, and so once again, state, when we've done the research, you all can continue to do the research. For the state is dealing with employees. So, that's the benefit of trust on the federal level. Is that they may or may not have employees. We talk about own not to control everything. So how can you do that if you have employees? And so there are entities that are more favorable. Uh, the EIN is assigned to traditionally a LLC, S corp, C corp, trust, different type of estates, different type of entities. And so you can see that if someone has assets or business that operates in multiple jurisdictions, you'll see a lot of federal administration there. Whereas if something is just traditionally located in one state, then that's why you see a lot of new entrepreneurs that say, "Oh, I just started my LLC locally, or I started my corporation locally in the state, and that's why I went and got an EIN number from the state." Whereas you don't see them saying, "Hey, I'm going to go get the federal," because they know that they're going to operate in multiple jurisdictions. And so, for that being the case, then they would know that the federal would be more apt in that particular case, and they'll find it out. And maybe some entrepreneurs do find it out on the back end, as they grow in their entrepreneur journey. But a lot of entrepreneurs we've run into, at least 60% or less, has definitely not known about the federal EIN. Is something that you can look into. Please make it a point to talk to a lawyer about a federal EIN if you just have a state, and just knowing both sides of the coin. Whether that's federal or state, those things are essential. So definitely wanted to do an episode about the federal versus the state. How it helps you enable, own, ethic, control everything, how it minimizes liability. One may have more of a liability or less, but particularly when you even know that the federal is superior to the state, then you see that there's a lot more leverage there, and you can administer and provide trusteeship in multiple jurisdictions, as opposed to just one in that particular state. So, benefits to it. If you want to get more in depth with that knowledge, you feel free to reach out to the vault at Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. But definitely want to bring light to this particular subject matter, and move forward with entrepreneurs knowing that there is a difference, and to bring awareness to it. So thank you all for listening. Appreciate you all. Feel free to reach out Christian at Trust Christian if it has further discussion points that you need to get a consultation about. Peace.